Hello, today we're going to look at percentages. 32 and then the percent symbol means 32%, which is 32 per cent. Cent coming from centimeter, centipede, century. It means 100. So 32% literally means 32 per 100. And as we saw in ratios, rates, and proportions, I can write this as a fraction, 32 divided by 100. And if I do out the division, whenever I divide by 100, I just move the decimal 2 places to the left. I get 0.32. So 32% is equal to 0.32. And we're going to do some practice of changing percents to decimals because that's going to be really important later on when we start doing equations that involve percents. So 46%, again, that's 46 over 100, and I'm just going to move the decimal over 2 places to the left. So that gives me 0.46. 12.5%, if I move the decimal place over 2 times, I get 0.125. 135% becomes 1.35. Anything over 100% is going to be over 1 when I convert it to a decimal. Sometimes we'll see things with fractional percent, so 25.25%. What I'm going to do first is change the quarter into a decimal itself. So I get 25.25%, and then I'm going to move the decimal over. So I get 0.2525. And then the last one is 3.2%. I'm going to move the decimal over twice, and I'm going to get 0.032. Okay. What we're going to focus on is what's called the basic percent equation. We're going to see this formula come up throughout the rest of the quarter, all the way down to the last lesson that we do. And it is basically percent times base equals amount. So P times B equals A. And generally, we're going to see this in words versus an equation. So we have to remember a little bit about converting between English to math. When I see the word of, that means multiplication. When I see the word is, that means equals. So we're going to have some examples. 16% of 50 is what? So 16% we need to change to a decimal. Of becomes multiplication. Is becomes equals. And what is the variable? It's what we're looking for. So we get 0.16 times 50 equals A. And if I want to find A, I just do the multiplication out. And I get that A is 8. Example B, 30% of what is 12? So again, 30% becomes 0.3 of multiplication, what, the thing we're looking for, is equals, and then 12 is 12. So 0.3 times B equals 12. If I want to get B by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 0.3, and I get out that B is 40. C, what percent of 20 is 30? So what percent, that's going to be P, our unknown, of multiplication, 20 is 20, is equals, and then 30 is 30. So P times 20 equals 30. To get P by itself, divide both sides by 20. And then P is 1.5, but remember the question is what percent? So P is given to us as a decimal. I want to put it back to a percent, so this is going backwards from what we did earlier. So instead of moving the decimal 2 places to the left, I want to move it 2 places to the right. So 1.5 becomes 150%. D, 25 is what percent of 50? So 25 equals P times 50. P is 0.5, which converts to 50%. Okay, we got one more page of equations, of examples. So E, 20 is 15% of what? So again, 20 equals 0.15 times B. And B is 133.33333333 forever and ever and ever. So I have the little bar over the 3. Don't call it 133. Don't call it 133.3. You know the 3 goes on forever, so show me that you know that. So 133.3 with a bar over it, or 133 and a third. You can always put it as the exact fraction also. F, what is 25% of 50? So what is A? Is equals 25% is 0.25 of multiplication 50, 50. And if I multiply this through, I get that A is 12.5. You should always go back and make sure your answer makes sense. Does it make sense that a quarter of 50 is 12.5? Does it make sense, going back to E, that 15% of 133.3 is 20? Does it seem reasonable? Right? So always go and say, does my answer make sense? G, 305 is 125% of what? So notice that it's 125%. That's more than 100%. So my answer should be less than 305 because I needed to get more than it to get to 305. So I'm going to set it up. 305 equals 1.25 times B. And B is 244. Then we got one more to go. So H, 80 is what percent of 10,000? 80 equals P times 10,000. When I divide both sides by 10,000, I get that P is 0.008. But again, I want it as a percentage. So when I move the decimal over twice, I get 0.8%. So something that's less than 1%, a very, very small percentage, which again, hopefully makes sense. 80 is very, very small compared to 10,000. Okay, so read over the book, try out the homework, and let me know if you have any questions.